Welcome back to Southwest Yard and Garden. I'm John White. Today we're going to be talking about landscape planning, and with the winter coming on, hopefully you have a little bit more time. But this is a good time to analyze maybe some of the good and bad things, some of your successes and failures in your yard and landscape this past year. And this is the time that we can make some changes in that. So one of the things that you might want to do if you haven't done it is update your landscape. And what we want to do is take a piece of graph paper, and you can purchase these at most any of the office supply stores. Anybody that carries a lot of stationery, you can usually find graph paper. You want to find it in tiny enough squares that, you know, one square can equal 1 foot, and make sure you have enough footage across it to cover your particular piece of property that you're trying to draw in here. But this is a good idea to do, and when we're doing this, we're going to take a rough out of our landscape. So here's our landscape roughed out. This is just penciled in. Here's the outline of the house. Here's the yard. We have an outline of any borders, and then measurements have been made all throughout. So wherever you have sidewalks and driveways and gates and stuff like that, make all those measurements in there, because you're going to need to put these back on your piece of paper. So you want to make sure that you cover everything that can possibly be measured. Make sure you have those measurements there, and then be sure to mark what is north, south, east, and west as far as direction on it. And when we draw the plan out, here's a plan of this house drawn much more cleanly, but all this is drawn to scale using those measurements. And we use a engineer scale or an architect scale to make sure that we do draw that to the precise measurements that we want. So we want to get all this on paper, and then we can fill in with irrigation, or somebody else, a licensed irrigator, can fill in with that. So this is what we want to do to start out, and then we'll go out to a site and actually see how some of the things are put on paper. Here we are on the site of an existing landscape, and this is a house that faces south, looks off onto a golf course, so the greenery is important to see in the view. There's also a desert area beyond it that is part of the scenics of this house, so that you have a nice open space. So as this yard is designed, we don't want a wall that's real tall blocking the views that we want. It's tall enough that it'll block some of the wind possibly moving through the area. It gives you somewhat of a feeling of a enclosed area, even though the wall is not very tall. Being that we're trying to design a water efficient landscape, we have kept our high water use plants here towards the activity area. So this patio area is kind of an extension off of the house. We have our little breakfast or coffee nook here, table, or late evening refreshments. So they're set out here to take advantage of the views and be out in the open here. Again, this is a south-facing house, so that plant materials that are a little bit frost sensitive could go in this area and be protected by the heat radiating off the house. So this is a good site to sit that. So as we're looking out, if there's views that we want to block, we can use some of the taller material to block those views, and then keep the plant material lower for where we do want to see through. So we have the added advantage here of working with a couple different things. So other things we want to look at are utilities, how they come into the house, where they're lined out, and if there's any kind of wind movement, we want to make a note on that on our plan, as far as any wind drafts and those kind of things. So environmental aspects are real important to have in the design also. So those are some of the things that we want to look at. Okay, we're back from our site tour, and as we're looking at landscapes, I do want to give you some references that you might want to follow up with some of the things we talked about. One book is the Southern Living Landscape book. This is kind of more of the traditional landscape book that's out on the market. The design principles are good, but watch out for the plant materials. Sometimes they will be from areas that are not real adapted to our area, so be careful with this. Some of the books that are more adapted to our xeriscape type landscaping, low water use. This one by Judith Phillips is an excellent one. This can be found in local bookstores. And another one that she did that really brings across her philosophy in using low water use native plants is Natural by Design. And then one that's pretty common out on the market is the Sunset Western Landscaping book, and this gives a lot of good principles as well as some plant recommendations, and it matches up with the Sunset New Western Garden book, so you can use both of those. So in a future show, we will be talking with a landscape architect and talk about how to pick a designer and pointing out some of the important things that you need to look for when you're doing your own design.